Hi, Dave and Stacy.
So if we can unmute Dave and Stacy. Dave, Stacy, can you guys hear us? Talk one more time. The volume wasn't quite up.
I can hear you.
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Got it. Yep.
Okay, 7:02, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Tim, you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Certainly. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
That was Tim and Laurel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Laurel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Stacy? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Audience of citizens, do we have anyone to address the board? Not at this point? Okay. The Portland Public Schools Spotlight, the Portland football team.
Can we move your microphones a little closer to you? With the air handling unit, I can't quite hear it. And Dylan, can we turn up that speaker so we can? I just can't quite hear everybody tonight.
It's hard, that blower kicked on
Yeah,
exactly
as soon
when
as
we
that blower
started.
kicked on, it gets really
Yeah.
cacophonous in here.
For an old guy like me, it washes everything out.
All right. So our spotlight tonight, I'm very excited to turn it over to Miss Lawson, and is Miss Bell with us? To introduce us to our state championship football team. Miss Lawson, can you hear us?
I sure can.
All
How's
right.
my volume?
This is
Good.
perfect. The
Good.
highlight of the night.
All right, so thank you. Good evening, Portland Board of Education members, Dr. Britton, and to our community viewing at home. On behalf of our athletic coordinator, Ms. Bell, who is right now as we speak in the gym overseeing a basketball game, and the Portland High School community, I would like to share our spotlight for this meeting. I'm proud to share that our spotlight is our state championship winning Cromwell Portland football team. I am very proud of the young men we are honoring tonight. And as I said at our recent National Honor Society induction, I was proud of you before you won a state championship or before you got into the National Honor Society. These are great kids. The student athletes on this team are remarkable in many ways. They are loyal teammates, they are dedicated students, they are hardworking, they are fun-loving, and they're all around nice people that make their schools a better place. And they're pretty good at football as well. You will never hear them refer to themselves or to others as a Cromwell player or a Portland player. This co-op over the last 7 years has truly fulfilled the vision of creating a team and allowing two schools who otherwise would to not only bond together over a shared love of football, develop team camaraderie, and certainly win wonderful accolades that I'm about to share with you. So at this time, please allow me to share some of the team's accomplishments according to the team's website and to many of the state sources that report on statistics, because I'm sure none of you would believe that I actually know all this about football. So, I'll begin to share with you. Caitlin, can you start the picture slides that I sent earlier today? after completing an extraordinary season, going undefeated 13-0, winning the Pequot League Championship, and then the Class S State Championship, the 2021 Cromwell Portland Panthers football team, players and coaches received several additional awards and honors during the postseason. As a team, the Panthers ended up ranked in the Game Time Connecticut Final 2021 Top 10 football poll with a number 9 ranking. This poll is for all the teams in Connecticut across all the classes. So most teams in the top 10 list are in the LL or L classes. Cromwell Portland is the only Class S team in the top 10 list, and one of only 2 teams that are not L or double L. Killingly is the Class M championship. This list is compiled through voting by a panel of 20 leading sports writers in Connecticut. The Panthers were also ranked in the top 10 state football coaches poll conducted by the Day of New London, and they were ranked 8th in this poll. Statistically, the Panthers are ranked as the second highest scoring team in the state behind Darien, with a total of 495 points scored and 71 total touchdowns during the season, for an average of 38 points and 5.5 touchdowns per game. Defensively, the Panthers are also number 2 in the state, behind Bloomfield, in terms of total number of points allowed during the regular season at 64, for an average of only 6 points allowed per game. In addition, Teddy Williams was one of 3 finalists in the state for the Walter Camp Foundation 2021 Player of the Year. The winner will be announced at the Walter Camp Breakfast of Champions Awards ceremony on March 12th, and the Panthers football team will also be honored at the breakfast as one of the 4 championship teams in the state. Teddy Williams is the top receiver in the state with 1,396 total yards, and is number 2 in the state for touchdowns with a total of 30, and number 3 in the state for total points earned at 182. He is also ranked as one of the top 20 defensive players in the state with a total of 110 tackles, and Williams received the Panthers 2021 Most Valuable Player of the Year award. Owen Brunk is ranked as the number 8 defensive player in the state with a total of 122 tackles during the year. He also earned the team's Defensive Player of the Year award. Panthers head coach Randall Bennett is one of 3 finalists for the Walter Camp Football Foundation's 2021 Coach of the Year, a statewide honor that will also be awarded at the March 12th breakfast. Coach Bennett was also awarded the Pequot League Coach of the Year, as well as assistant coach Ethan Roy for receiving Assistant Coach of the Year. Quarterback Cole Brisson was honored as the Panthers 2021 Offensive Player of the Year, and he ranked number 2 in the state for passing yardage with 2,643 total yards and 30 touchdown passes. Sophomore Jack Williams earned the team's Underclassmen of the Year award for his contributions to both the Panthers' offense and defense, including making or assisting with 37 tackles during the year. And finally, congratulations to the following players on the Cromwell Portland football team who were selected as Pequot Conference All-Stars. They are on offense, Cole Brisson, Alex Hare, Teddy Williams, Matt Vinishevsky, Ethan Philbrick, and Jack Williams. And on defense, Ben Fagan, Owen Brunk, Ryan Rossich, and Emeka Yearwood. It is my pleasure to share these accolades with the Board of Education tonight. I believe we have joining us Coach Bennett, and it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to him, if we can get him unmuted, to congratulate not only him on a wonderful football season, but also on the leadership he provides and the mentorship he provides to the young men in his care. Coach Bennett?
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you. More importantly than just for all the accolades and stuff like that, but just for the tremendous amount of support that comes from, Portland, and Cromwell. But, this past year has just been amazing. Just to see how much, the town has just embraced, like what football can be here. Everybody coming together, seeing, all these kids every week, and I'm like, is that a Cromwell kid or a Portland kid? You don't know. These communities have become blended we used to be at war with each other in other sports, and now it's like, all that's to the side, and, we cheer for each other, and I'm just excited for the future, just to grow our program and, grow these relationships in both times.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. It's a great job.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Britton.
Thank you. Well, I don't know where to go from there. I don't want to talk about. I
That's
don't
pretty
want to talk
awesome.
about. Let's just call the meeting over and go
And we're
home.
done.
That was great.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
right. I mean, I'm going to the weight room tonight, so we're getting ready for 2022.
All right.
So,
It doesn't get much
keep
better.
moving.
That's great.
That's
Congratulations.
wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you, great
you.
job.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wow.
All right.
Okay, next we have the student representative report.
I can start on that for tonight. Right, so good evening, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Last month, the high school hosted their annual 8th grade preview night, and 8th grade parents and students were able to come in and get a preview of what life looks like at the high school. And there were a bunch of student-run panels that led discussions on school climate, capstone, and extracurriculars. As a student on one of the panels, I say it was a really successful night. And also the National Honor Society, had their induction last month, and we welcomed 28 new inductees to the society, so great amount. Congratulations to all of them. And with that, I'll hand it over to Leah.
So the school participated in Spirit Week a few weeks ago to kick off winter break. The favorite day among students was definitely the Anything But a Backpack Day, in which students were encouraged to bring their school supplies in anything but a backpack. They brought coolers, wagons, and even shopping carts. We also had a winter pet rally to end off the week, and this year we were able to get back to a more traditional setup, and it was a very fun afternoon for both students and teachers. The teachers and Senate members in the school also had a door decorating competition this past month. Each Senate member helped the teachers design and create a holiday display on their classroom doors, and students were able to vote for their favorite. The designs ranged from holiday-themed photo booths, holiday movies, and even gingerbread houses.
Great. Do you know who the winner was?
Must have been a hard choice.
I know. The ones I saw were beautiful.
The one around the library was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Who won? Do you guys know?
I believe Miss Laverty won.
All right. Congratulations, Ms. Laverty.
Thank you for your reports. And we'll move on to communication and updates, and Dr. Britton.
Okay. All right, so, few communications from you. First, we received a letter of resignation from Chris Moriarty, who was a paraprofessional with us and working as an academic assistance tutor at the high school. Did an outstanding job for us and can't thank him enough. Wish him well. He's gone on to take a position as a business teacher at a neighboring school. So, congratulations, Chris, and we wish him well. Second communication, last spotlight, you heard Ms. Hine present to you about Project Oceanology, right? And it was an outstanding hands-on experience where the students get to go out in a boat on the Sound and do all kinds of outstanding research, right? So I did include in your packet tonight a copy of the grant. We're going to go for it again. I'm very happy to let you know that we will continue with that outstanding program. I know our students loved it. Ms. Hine is a big proponent of it, and I'm really happy that we have it in Portland, and I'm committed to getting the boat to come pick up the kids here in Portland. That will be the
We'll need a
topper.
dock.
Yeah, that's right.
Someday.
Someday, right? So I thought you might be interested in that only because it is really an outstanding program at Brownstone, and I'm very happy that we can keep it.
I'm glad you gave that to us. That was really interesting. Thank you.
Thought you'd like to see that. All right, so now we go from the very exciting, happy news part of the meeting to the not so happy, exciting part of the meeting. And I apologize for that. So the first thing I included in your packets tonight was the latest update from the Chatham Health District, Russ Melvin, and this gives you a snapshot of the COVID numbers that we're experiencing here in Portland. And note that this is dated 12/12 to 12/25. I think the next one we're gonna get is going to be even worse. So, I'm sorry, did I?
I don't have anything
I don't
like
have
that.
it.
Let me read them to you, and you know, they're in your drive, and not likely, I may have just printed this out afterwards. So, the numbers were, if you remember correctly, when we started at the pandemic, the number 15 per 100,000 new infections was the signal to go to hybrid or
Yes.
remote, right? The number now is 67.8.
Oh, my God.
And I heard from Russ that in the next report we're gonna get, which is closer to the last couple of weeks, it's gonna be closer to 90.
Wow.
So the numbers are higher now than they've ever been. right?
Is that in Portland or is that a district-wide number? I mean,
That-
our Chatham Health District number?
Portland's
That's
is
Portland.
67.8.
Okay.
The Chatham Health District as a whole is 65.8.
It's
So,
just so high everywhere.
yeah, it's high everywhere.
Yeah.
It is entirely consistent, I'll say, with our experience in the schools the week before we went on break. Right? We were having more positive cases reported to us during that week and doing more contact tracing than we had ever done. It was, I don't know how to describe it except breathtaking in terms of the numbers of cases we were getting and the quarantining and investigations that our nurses were doing. So that's where we are. The numbers in Portland, I think, match what your people are largely hearing about the state of Connecticut and nation. It's a wildfire at this point. So I sent you an email right before holiday break talking to you about how, you know, I was particularly concerned about several things that we were experiencing. One, I mentioned to you that I don't know that our nurses were capable of staying on top of the amount of contact tracing that we were doing, right? I mean, it was alarming. Just to give you a sense, one case that we would get reported would require the nurses and administrators to conduct an investigation where they had to determine every single student who that one positive student came in touch with over a 3-day period during which they were infectious, right? And that's classes, buses, lunches, snacks, sporting events. I mean, so you can just imagine how much time it would take to follow that student around through their day to determine who they were with. Then once they determined who they were with, identify whether those students were vaccinated or unvaccinated, and then communicate with all of those students, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, and say to the vaccinated students, you are a close contact, but because you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine, but monitor for symptoms. And say to the unvaccinated students, you are a close contact, you need to quarantine for the period of time. And have that communication with every single one of those students and their families. Now, doing that with one, it takes an entire day. When we were getting 4 or 5 a day, you quickly see it essentially becomes impossible. Right? You just can't manage it when the rates in the community are 67.8 during that period of time. And, you know, clearly that shows up in the schools. So that was one of the things I indicated to that I was concerned about. The other thing, of course, that I was indicating to you that I was concerned about is the number of quarantines that were flowing from that, right? The hundreds of students, either unvaccinated or partially vaccinated, who had to stay out, and the effect on the schools of that, right? So that's how we went into the break. And during the break, things have gotten exponentially worse, right? The numbers are continuing to go up. To the point where during the break, we heard that the number reached 20% and then 21%, and now we're at 24% of PCR cases that are coming back positive, right? And those don't even include the at-home kits, which I'm going to show you and talk to you about tonight. So as we started to get towards the end of break, hearing numbers like 21, 22, 24%, I was very well aware, as was anybody, any superintendent who has been living this for 2 years, about one, how are the nurses going to possibly contact trace our way through this? What is the quarantine going to look like with 10 days as the requirement for students? And how are we going to manage this, right? I mean, it's just out of control, right? So likely you started hearing news reports towards the end of last week with people questioning whether schools were going to reopen, right? Like, how could we reopen and sustain in the current environment what we were sustaining when the numbers were even lower, but still going on this wrong side of this curve. So last Friday, New Year's Eve and Sunday, the Department of Public Health and the Connecticut State Department of Education started signaling to everybody in the state, including superintendents through our messages, that we are fully reopening. The expectation has been and will be that we go back to school, and I think that all of us want that. We want to be here in person. But what we were saying is, we want to be here in person, but how do we do that? Right? I mean, with the number of breakthrough infections amongst positive people, which are vaccinated people, which are relatively mild, thank God, still, to have to isolate for 10 days, it's just untenable, right? I mean, we wouldn't be able to staff our buildings. So literally, New Year's Eve, we got a series of new communications from the Department of Public Health that revised the existing guidelines. And I sent, after reading a lot of them and understanding them and meeting with Russ and the Chatham Health District superintendents and the other superintendents groups and my administrative team, who we worked all day Sunday to try to understand this and make sense of it, I was able to organize the information and share it with the community. And I did send an email out on Sunday that updated the schools and community as to what the new approaches are. The two big ones are, one, the period of isolation if you test positive, or if you're quarantined because you're a close contact and are partially vaccinated or unvaccinated, has been reduced from 10 days to 5 days. Okay. I understand, because I've heard plenty of feedback from people saying, is that really the science, right? Is Omicron not infectious after day 5? And I think that the answer I've heard to that is, I don't know that the decision to reduce from 10 days to 5 days is a reflection of the science, as much as it's a reflection of what you need in order to keep operating schools and businesses and airlines and the economy. Because if everybody gets sick and is out 10 days, well, that's twice as long as 5 days. Right? So that's where we are. So if you test positive now, or if you are quarantining, the expectation is 5 days. If at the end of 5 days you're symptom-free, negative, not feverish, you can come back on the 6th day. But the expectation is you wear a mask and keep yourself as far away from people as you can. That's the first major change. Again, designed, I believe, to ensure that we can keep operating. The second major change is that we are no longer contact tracing. So our nurses, if we receive reports of positive cases, and this week already we have 6 that we know positive, more amongst our faculty and staff. I didn't get the updated numbers from you today. I'll be sending that out by the end of the week. But we're not investigating and contact tracing anymore. So we will not be quarantining students any longer. Those are the two big changes. I will tell you that is alarming to plenty of people. And I have had calls from parents who are alarmed by that, don't necessarily believe it reflects the science or best practices, and have asked for remote options for their kids. I've had to say, because again, this is part of the guidelines, that we are not offering remote learning to students unless they fall into one of three categories. One, they're positive. We do offer some synchronous access to the classroom if students are COVID positive and staying home during the isolation period. We also offer synchronous access to the classrooms to students who are forced to quarantine, right? Or, otherwise we're telling you can't come in, which we won't be doing any longer.
I know.
Right.
I was gonna say, who would that be?
Yep. Or if students have a documented medical condition that would be a function of a 504 or a PPT team, that could also be a consideration. But, and I just want to make you aware that, several parents have expressed concern that the choice to keep children home out of an abundance of caution is not an option. That if you're keeping your child home out of an abundance of caution, the guidelines say those are unexcused absences and need to be treated as such. So that's where we are. I'll stop there and ask a question, see if there are any questions.
Just a quick one, and just clarify, so if a child becomes symptomatic at school, he will be sent home. Will he be isolated from the population as in the past? Is there a room set aside again for that student? So we will quarantine at school until the parent comes to get the child, and then they're going home for the 5 days until they're symptom-free.
Yes, and let me answer that question when I talk to you about what I have to show you,
Okay.
which we just got today, which is another tool in our tool belt.
Yes.
We have a lot of these right now, so
Good.
so hold that question if
Okay.
you could, and I can get to that momentarily.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Is there a difference between a child who is exposed in school versus a child who is exposed in an extracurricular environment outside of school in terms of whether kids are expected to quarantine?
For sure, right? So you remember screen and stay?
Yeah.
All of those things are moot because we're not contact tracing anymore, right? I hate to put it in these terms, but the white flag is up.
Yeah.
We're not, if a parent calls, historically, if a parent called and reported a child ill, and that student was on a basketball team, as part of that contact tracing, that would merit a different level of consideration than if the child was just in class masked. Right? These were all of the many, many considerations that went through the investigation that our nurses conducted, right? That would then lead to decisions about who was quarantined and who wasn't, right? But we're not doing that anymore.
Right, I think my question was more, because there was a press conference with the governor this morning, and I listened to a portion of it, and I heard something that, I wasn't sure if I heard it correctly, that if an unvaccinated child is at an indoor soccer practice and gets exposed at soccer practice and finds out through the team, not through any kind of in-school contact tracing process,
Right.
that then there is an expectation that that unvaccinated child would need to quarantine for the 5 days before returning to school. And I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly, that that we treat the outside of school exposures differently than a potential exposure in school, which we are no longer contact tracing. Does that make sense, or?
I do. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I'm very well versed in in-school contact tracing.
Yeah.
I don't know the guidelines for what soccer teams do or other.
But that child wouldn't need to quarantine before coming back to school?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
So I know, at least for my children's soccer club, if there's a positive child on the team, the entire team is quarantined from all soccer activities for 2 full weeks, not even 10 days. The entire team can't participate. So we've had games canceled because there's been a single exposure on another team. So to my knowledge, the clubs are still contact tracing, and to my knowledge, that would still qualify as a required quarantine.
Right.
I just wasn't
I
sure what that
believe.
meant for school.
Yeah.
Right. No, I believe they would have to quarantine from school, but I didn't watch the press conference today.
Yeah.
My understanding is they would
be
have to
from school
quarantine.
too.
Yeah.
That would be the expectation. Now, of course, we'd have to know about that.
Right.
Right,
You know,
right.
And trust people
Have to trust
to
it.
do the right thing.
Right.
If they are told to quarantine by.
We had to do that the whole time anyway, though, right?
Right.
Right.
Yes. So it's very complicated.
Sounds like it.
Now,
I'm sure.
there are some
Yeah.
good things here, right? We are fully reopened. Our staff is still strong. We have about 7% of our faculty out right now. Our student attendance isn't dramatically higher. We're doing okay. But I'm watching it really carefully, right? Because what is happening now is a lot of people who are vaccinated are still testing positive. There's a lot of that. Now, fortunately, I think what I'm hearing is that a lot of people who are vaccinated and testing positive, the symptoms are relatively minor. But if you're vaccinated and you test positive, you're still quarantined for 5 days. Right? You're probably aware of in the news, some schools and districts have been forced to close because of the staff that flows from that. I mean, if 30% of our teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, food services workers, administrators test positive at once and are out, that is going to be what I'm calling a snow sick day.
Yep.
Right? We are going to close for a day or two to get over that 5-day hurdle. They will not be remote days. They would be made up. Right? So I did inform the community of that. I am every morning now getting texts and on with the administrators first thing saying check your absences. We've asked our faculty as soon as they know they're not going to be out to let us know, and so that we will monitor it carefully, and certainly we will exhaust all of our subs. We will redeploy resources. I will cover classes. Our administrators will cover classes. We will do everything we possibly can to stay open up until we can't, because we don't have the bus drivers or food service or nurses or administrators to safely run our buildings. And if we get to that point, it would be communicated the same way I would communicate a snow day, and we would treat it that way, make it up in June. If we got to the point where we were out of June days, we would have to, as a board, have a conversation about whether we maintain April vacation. We do have a day in there of professional development we could look at. You know, we're not there yet, but I am very much aware and thinking ahead about what would happen if I had to shut school, either because Mother Nature throws, like this Friday, potentially too many snow falls at us, or Omicron knocks us around.
Charles, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask the status of the bus drivers in town. Are they driving? We had some in the pipelines for training. Are they driving?
So we have 7 on the road. They're all healthy and all running right now. We're hoping to get 8 by the end of January. This bus driver is in the final phases of licensing. And we're hoping to get back towards 9 and 10 towards the end of February. So if all goes well and everybody stays healthy and passes their drug tests and licensing and everything they need to pass to be on the road, I'm hopeful that by March we'll have 10 routes running again. But right now we have 7.
Can I just ask you? You had in your email to the community, you asked for, you'd ask, for if people would volunteer or who were willing to become substitutes, and I'm wondering what kind of response you had.
6. Well, I interviewed 3 today. I'm referring them on to ESS, and I'm interviewing 3 on Thursday. The 3 I met with today were wonderful.
Great.
All parents willing to help out. Can't thank them enough. And I've got 3 good ones, I think, in the hopper for Thursday too. So that was a nice response.
That's great. And
Yep.
are you able to just reassure our community that these are not random people
Nope.
who are being fast-tracked through, that these are highly qualified, fantastic substitutes?
Yeah, they will be interviewed and vetted by me. They will be interviewed and vetted by ESS, our subservice. They will be background checked. They will be trained. They will be fully vetted the same way. We'll just fast track that. We'll get on the phone with the FBI and beg them to move as quickly as they can.
So, just as we did
Just as we
last
did
year.
this time last year. Exactly. Yep. All right, so one piece of good news here. Today we received, I didn't get an exact count, but 7 huge boxes, crates of these. Right, so here they are. These, if you haven't seen them yet, I guarantee you will soon. These are your at-home COVID test kits. Right? 600 of these were handed out to Portland residents on Saturday by the CERT team here in town. They had a setup at the high school where people could come through and, if they're a resident, grab their kit, and they were handing out kit masks like mine, the N95 ones. This allocation, Carl Johnson went down to up to New Britain today and picked up our 7 crates of these, and these are now in our nurse's office. So the guidelines for the distribution of these is that they're not just going out the door to anybody that wants one, but they're going to anybody who is showing signs or symptoms or who has had a close contact. So to Meg's question, when we have a student who comes to the nurse's office and says, I have a headache, the student does go to the isolation room. The parent is notified, and the parent is asked to come pick the child up, and the child goes home with one of these, right, so that the parent can test the child to see if it is COVID that is causing the headache or just didn't drink enough water. If the test is negative, come on back to school. If the test is positive, that starts your 5 days of isolation. So.
And is that day 1 or is that day 0? Do you know?
Oh, goodness.
Because I feel like that's been confusing. I'm sorry, I just feel like that's something that's been confusing in different communication that I've seen. Some people are saying, I'm positive today, this is day 1, but I feel like when my children were quarantined in the past, that was day 0 for them. So, I don't know.
This is when I say, Dave Opazinski, help me
Right.
understand. So I will often be on the phone. I think it is the onset of symptoms is your day 1.
Okay.
But I don't know whether that is actually onset of symptoms or the positive test as day 1. So if you'd like, I can find out from Dave.
It's really not that important.
And we
So-
can, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just so, how many, you said 7 cases or crates of these, how many does that translate? Is there like 2 in a box?
Let
or-
me let you know. There were big boxes. I just saw the boxes. I forgot to look to see how many were in each box. But there were a bunch of them. I can let you know Friday.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm just curious.
But in each one of these is 1 kit.
So the nurses don't test them at school? They're
Absolutely
testing-
not. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm learning a lot about these things. You would need something called a celiac certificate
Right.
of waiver to.
Yes,
Yeah.
There we go. Right. Yeah. Am I right, Stacy? Is that what it is?
yes, it's a CLIA waiver,
CLIA.
yes.
CLIA.
Very good.
Right, yeah, thank you. So we would need a CLIA waiver to do testing, and we don't have that. So what our nurses can do is help people understand how to do them, but people would need to do them and then interpret the results in the home.
And this is another shift in policy from, in the past, if you were sent home sick from school, you needed a PCR test, a
Correct.
negative PCR test in order to return, and now it's acceptable to use an at-home test and get a negative and return to school.
Excellent, yes. And that is partially due to the long lines and if you
Yeah.
can even get
It's so
PCR
hard to get a
tests.
test
It
right
is
now.
impossible to get a test.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. So, that's where we are. I will
Well, that's good news.
keep you posted. But hopefully, like we saw last year, we'll cruise into February and those numbers, just like last year, will drop dramatically. And I know we're all very much looking forward to that. And in addition to these, we picked up, I don't have the exact number, but a big box, I saw them today, of N95 masks. So these are available for our faculty staff. They're all adult size, so some of our high school students could fit in them. We don't have child size ones, but certainly our teachers.
Knots in the earpieces.
Yeah, and I, as you can see, have transitioned over to this. I think it's a safer product, from what I understand.
I want to say that you're getting really good at this stuff. I mean, considering where we were a year ago, this is much easier to transition to the new guidelines, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Much appreciated. Not that you want to be really an expert at it, but.
And like anything else, in the past couple of years, it's really the speed at which these changes come. I don't blame anybody. It's hard. Nobody has experience with this. But the speed and the constantly changing nature of this it's very frustrating. It's hard for people to understand. This isn't easy stuff. It's not exactly how I wanted to spend my entire weekend.
Exactly.
But we do what we got to do.
Well, and I think going forward, the stomach bugs and all the other things that kids share, particularly at the lower elementary level, we're going to get better at handling that as well, where we won't be seeing epidemic levels of kids going home with a tummy tummy aches and all the things that ensue with that. So I think we're gonna get better at just handling health crisis in general
Right.
in our schools.
Exactly. So stay tuned.
Yep.
All right, let me move on. So I did include in your packet tonight, our enrollment report. Interestingly enough, our enrollment is up. You know, we have 9 new students. We're happy to welcome at the high school. I called Chuck today and talked to him. He said they're lovely students. He's been giving lots of tours. These are students who have moved into town and some who are returning from homeschooling. Right? So our enrollment is up to 1,254 students is in the latest enrollment figures now. Okay, I included in your packet, really quickly, the calendar from the town for our budget development, process. So our budget is due to the town, Friday, January 28th. I left for you today, and thank you to Stephanie for putting those together, your budget books. So that gives you a week to look through those. Our first budget workshop is next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. We'll be right here. Stephanie and I will give you the whole presentation on the budget and how we've aligned our priorities to board goals and other important initiatives. If after that workshop we need another day, we have the 13th, the Thursday scheduled. So if we complete the business and obviously the board supports the budget, certainly you could take action on that next Tuesday. If not, we have Thursday, and if we're still not done Thursday, we can schedule more time. So just to remind you of the process, what you have there is the superintendent's recommended budget. Certainly, you're welcome to adjust that budget in any way that you direct me and Stephanie to adjust that budget. And then once you take action on it and it's approved, it becomes the board's budget, and then it's your budget, and I support you and advocate with you, with the town, to hopefully see it cross the finish line in the spring. Any questions there? Stacy, do you have any questions? I know this is your first run through the budget process.
Just, Tip, and could you take the budget book for me, and I'll get it on Thursday?
Sure. I tell you what, I could drop it off at your house tomorrow if you want.
Okay,
I tell
that's
you,
fine.
why don't you email me your address? I'll bring it to your house. Dave, if you email me your address, I'll drop it off in your mailbox tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, very good. So the next thing I included in your report is the Peter Prouda enrollment study. So amongst the many things we've been reading carefully, it's a pretty detailed report. I did email Mr. Prouda, and he has not gotten back to me yet. I have 2 questions for him. One, I didn't see anything in the footnotes or anywhere about Brainerd Place, right? And I'm not entirely sure if he forgot to consider that, or I mentioned it to him when I spoke with him on the phone, but you know, that is as far as I know at this time, the only major residential development in town. I'm curious if he considered that. And I know the majority of those units are like studio, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. I don't know whether it's multiple bedroom. I'm not completely comfortable with how that factored into this. So I did ask him if he factored in Brainerd Place, if he didn't, how he would consider the number of those units in the context of this. And I also asked him if he would be willing to do a presentation of this for us. Right, so I'm hoping he will come and present his report to us, and then that will give us the opportunity to ask him questions about the report.
Wasn't that part of the contract?
Yeah, it's an additional fee. I think it's like a $350
Yeah.
presentation fee, but we would certainly, I think that would be $350 well spent to have him come either join us in person or over Zoom to present the enrollment.
I thought we had addressed that in the contract
Yes.
also, that we included that.
Well,
included it in our
we
initial
certainly
motion.
talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, it's
That
an
would be-
add-on that he
Yeah.
does, so
Mm.
I don't know that we paid him for it yet. We've only paid him for the report, but if he comes and does that. The highlight for the report is, and I'll quote him, he says, quote, "I project that the total enrollment could increase almost 5%, going from 1,232 students in 2021 to about 1,290 students in 2031. And I quoted that right from his summary here. So, that's a pretty stable number. Increase of 5%. It doesn't strike me as huge increase or huge decrease. I think it's pretty stable. Again, I just want to fact check with him how the calculation considers the Brainerd Place development.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? All right, and just to remind everybody, this is an important report to have as we continue with our facilities modernization discussion.
Maybe I could suggest that if he's going to be doing a presentation, it's a joint meeting with the Facilities Committee and the Board of Ed.
That's exactly what I
And
was
the
thinking.
selectmen too, if they want to
They want, absolutely, yes.
join in.
So stay tuned. He hasn't emailed me back, but I'll keep hounding him.
Good. Are we ready to move on to the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. Dylan, if you could also unmute at this time, Kate Bohannon, Stephen Jewell, who I think last time I checked, he's just appearing, his title just says Stephen, and Chuck Hershon. Okay, then popping up on my end. Just waiting on Chuck. Excellent. So good evening, members of the Board of Education. Dylan's going to be sharing in a moment a presentation. I'm actually not sure. Board of Ed members, can you see that presentation in the room currently?
Not yet.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Not yet.
I think Dylan's going to project
Just a
or
moment.
share it.
There it is.
Okay. And Dylan, is that also going to be shared in the Zoom?
It is animated, so I just want to make sure something is being presented.
Yeah, it's being shared right now. Okay, so good evening. This is a little bit different than my usual presentation to the board, my monthly presentation. It's an exciting night in that the work of our Equity and Inclusion Coalition for the better part of the past year has been getting to this point tonight. We have been working hard as a coalition, which you're going to hear a lot about tonight, to produce a district equity statement that we'll be presenting to the board tonight, asking you to consider and with the potential of taking action on for approval. I do recognize that the board may consider this a first read of the statement tonight, so we're not expecting a motion for approval tonight, but if the board is comfortable doing that at the end of our presentation, we would certainly welcome that. So I've presented numerous times to the board about our Equity and Inclusion Coalition. This is a group and work that the board has sanctioned as part of our strategic goals dating back to 2020-2021 school year and the onset of that school year. And I'm joined in this presentation tonight by three key members of our coalition. The first two, PHS social worker Kate Bohannon and Brownstone teacher Stephen Jewell, are our district equity coordinators and sitting members on the coalition. And middle school principal Chuck Hershon is also been a member of the coalition since its inception. And so we're excited to present our work to you tonight. Dylan, if you could advance to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Kate Bohannon, who is going to tell you a little bit about our coalition.
Hi, everyone. So Eric said I'm going to talk a little bit about our coalition. So the work with this coalition was sanctioned by the Portland Public Schools Board of Education at the onset of the 2020-2021 school year. Because in Portland, the need for action became clear both quantitatively and qualitatively. So looking at the marginalized group. We were also fortunate that the Portland Social Justice Coalition shared testimony that they had gathered from former students and parents that really showed the personal story side of the situation going on. And those two, the data and those stories made it clear that equity was a critical area for us to examine in the district. So we contracted with the Partners for Educational Leadership, which at the time we started this work was called the Connecticut Center for School Change. And under their guidance, we began recruiting last February and held our first meeting on March 9th, 2021. At our highest membership, we had 22 participants. And this was made up of community members, Board of Education members, school administrators, teachers and staff, and I think the most important, Portland secondary school students. Membership this year has fluctuated, and renewed recruitment is a top priority as we go into this new year. So the coalition in general acts as a guiding entity to our school districts and our schools, and examining current policies, practices, and procedures, offering guidance on any emerging issues where inequity may be impacting students, and also working in conjunction with the building-based equity teams that each of our schools have at this point.
So I'm going to do our next slide, which is all about why, or what an equity statement is and why we need it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Jewell. So what is an equity statement? An equity statement is basically a foundational document. It includes agreed upon principles of what equity are, the definition of equity, a guiding core beliefs about what equity is, and here in PPS, it's our district stance or positional commitment towards equity. An equity statement is also, it guides all of the facets of teaching and learning. It ensures a focus on high achievement for every learner, and it establishes accountability for leaders and schools. So why do we need an equity statement? I would probably argue that the most important reason that we want an equity statement is because it's reflective of Portland Public Schools mission statement. So we have just a short little excerpt from the first paragraph in our statement, which is Portland Public Schools respects and promotes the dignity and worth of the individual and seeks to provide an equal opportunity for each student to realize his or her fullest potential for academic and personal achievement. Additionally, equity statements are really important because it would help us to really acknowledge and aim to reduce success gaps that are evidenced in the data that Mr. Bohannon talked about in the previous slide. Additionally, PBS students, parents, and community members have implored us this year and in years past to commit ourselves to this work, and this own board has identified advancing equity as a strategic goal with committing district funds and personnel towards this same goal.
You can advance us to the next slide, Dylan. Thank you.
So next we want to share two short videos from two of our student members on the importance of equity and this work. So first we're going to hear from Jikisma Yedra, who is a senior this year. If you click on the video, it should bring up the link. Yes, I did it right.
Hi, I'm Jikisma Yedra, and I'm a senior at Portland High School. So on average, students spend around 1,260 hours every school year, and that's excluding extracurricular activities. For a lot of students, school is their safe space, and it's the place where they grow up and they learn, and a lot of people are raised in school. And so that's why equity work is so important to have in schools. This is the place that they're learning skills that they're going to use for the rest of their life, and it's going to impact them no matter where they go. So we have to make sure that we're giving them the proper skills and the tools and the information needed.
And our next video is from Dorothy Riley, who is a sophomore this year.
sophomore at Portland High School. I've been part of this coalition since it started last year, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. In my opinion, the work that this coalition is doing is amazing for us students. I really thank everyone who's a part of the coalition. I would have to say one of the biggest aspects of this coalition that I think will definitely show in the future is its way of making the students feel wanted here. I feel that with this definition and everything that we have created, the students will feel more wanted here. They're gonna feel like, okay, maybe it is safe to be at school, based on who they identify as and who they are as a person and what they look like. Because I feel as though as a student of this school, there are times when it's not that they don't want to have good grades, they don't want to do, the homework or go to class. It's because of people in those environments make them uncomfortable and make them feel like, I don't want to be here. Like, what is the point if I can't feel a sense of relief and just calmness within the school environment that I have to go to? And I believe that while I can't just say it's just going to change us academically once this definition and everything is put out, I can say that socially it definitely will change once the students are hearing about it and are able to understand what is actually being said through all this work. And I think that with that social aspect comes communication, talking to one another, and after talking to one another, people can grow relationships in which friendships can grow and people can be like, this person I didn't like 2 years ago, now I'm best friends with them. Now I can converse with them and work with them and not have to worry about, well, I can't do this person because of this reason. And what I think is really special about this coalition is it's doing work that many students are capable of, just afraid to because they feel like the adults won't help them. Well, finally, we're now getting to see that adults really do want to help us and that students too are not as afraid to share their opinions. Like me, I am very open and honest with all of them there about what it's like going here and the environment and culture and all of that. Because I think it's important that we all feel wanted and included here. It's just amazing what this coalition has done and will continue to do in the future. Because without people like them, we can't grow and improve and access a better future, a better environment, a better everything, honestly. I really honestly thank all of them for their hard work and dedication to make this a safe, fun, inclusive, equitable school. And I'm really excited to see what they are going to do in the future. And I definitely will be helping in any way I can as a student and maybe after I graduate, an alumni. Thank you.
We can move to the next slide, please, Dylan.
Oh, I forget that I have the slide that follows Dorothy. That's rough. So this is very brief. I just want to kind of go over the timeline of what our coalition has done in coming together to today and building this acceptance statement. We started back in February with just our own internal learning with all the stakeholders of our group, parents, students, teachers, administrators, wanting everyone to get similar definitions, an understanding of what an equity lens is, and then looking at models of what other districts have done doing this work. One of the first things that our Partners for Education Leadership talked about was setting that vision, which is why this vision statement has been a long process. This has taken us the better part of a year to work on. And we did so and worked diligently so that we can be thoughtful, we can focus on the true definitions and understanding that all of our stakeholders needed. We can get feedback, we can critique one another, we can really look deeply at who we are as a district and who we want to become. We've road tested this past year. After working over the majority of the second half of last year, we reconvened this fall, began road testing our working definition, the critical feedback from our different stakeholders. Putting that together took a lot of time and a lot of work. We feel like the statement that we have to share with you tonight represents, again, not a statement of where we are today, where we know we need to be to do the best that we can for all of our students.
We can head on to the next slide, Dylan. Thank you, Chuck. I just want to reiterate again, the statements from our students are so powerful, and to have their voices at the forefront of this work, gives it that much more weight and that much more importance and impact. The Board of Education was provided a copy of our draft equity statement that we're submitting for approval in tonight's board packet. Principal Hirschon referenced a road testing process through which we put out previous drafts of this document and gathered feedback from different stakeholder groups. The Board of Education at their retreat this summer was actually one of the first groups to lay eyes on our rough draft of the statement at that point. And so as we road tested this document and gathered feedback from different groups of community members, it really kind of gave us a broad set of varied considerations around which we set out on the hard work of refining and revising the work. And some of the guiding feedback and considerations that emerged from that road testing process and that carried forward into this final draft is we wanted a document that reflects both courage and commitment. It's a visionary document that points the way to new futures, reference the idea that this establishes accountability. It's a document that can serve to frame and inform action moving forward, and it's laser focused on really what is at all times our singular goal, which is to advance student achievement across Portland Public Schools and for each and every learner. The idea of shared language. One of the most important aspects of an equity statement is that it provides clarity around important terms such as equity and bias, and these have become highly politicized and highly charged terms in a current context, but really these are long-standing considerations that when we think about what these terms actually mean and we provide clarity around their true meaning, it strips out any of that controversy and moves issues and considerations of equity and bias from something of a political misunderstanding in the current context to more of a civic responsibility for all time. So an attempt very intentionally to avoid jargon and loaded terms. We want a document that's honest and transparent. It's able to be read and understood. It's accessible to all. We kind of functioned, under this lens of it should be understandable, readable, accessible from everyone in 4th grade up to adulthood. And for our learners younger than 4th grade with just a little bit of adult assistance. Direct and concise in its language, and reflects actions, reflects a framework that can be operationalized across Portland Public Schools and across all of our systems to guide and inform action. We wanted it to be an affirmational document rather than an accusational document. Community inclusive, objective and civic, importantly non-divisive. So the language reflects words like we and us, and ultimately a document that inspires us collectively to a brighter future, not that alienates individuals with suppositions or assumptions. And so at this point, we're excited to share with the board the specific elements that are within the statement. These are the elements within that same document that you were provided in the board packet. We're going to take you through the different core elements that comprise the equity statement one at a time, starting with the definition. And we could advance to the next slide.
I'm going to read the definition. I feel like I should ask for example. In Portland Public Schools, equity is a fundamental right of all members within our community to be heard, to be seen, to feel valued, and to have fair access and opportunity to achieve social, academic, and personal success. Next slide.
So the next piece of our definition is our core beliefs. So number one, Portland Public Schools is a diverse learning community made up of individuals with unique identities and experiences that are both known and unknown. These identities and experiences bring value and strength to our community. Number two, unconscious bias leads us to unfairly judge others without thinking. Over time, these judgments can create inequities and contribute to systems of advantage and disadvantage. Number three, by working together, we can identify, understand, and overcome biases within Portland Public Schools. And number four, we have a shared responsibility to advance equity in Portland Public Schools and to create a stronger community in which all members can accomplish their best.
This next piece of our equity statement is the final piece, which is our Portland Public School commitments. In order to advance equity across Portland Public Schools, we will use student data to find successes and inequities within our school community and to set goals for improvement. Preserve and strengthen our schools, classrooms, and programs as safe and shared community spaces where diversity is protected and celebrated. And finally, empower each member of our school community with the knowledge, courage, and opportunity needed to bring about positive change.
And so those core elements taken together comprise our district equity statement. And so we're here tonight presenting this statement to the Board of Education, a statement that represents, again, nearly 12 months worth of work, input from stakeholder groups across our community, consensus within our coalition, that is a living document. This represents, in this current time, a statement that we're comfortable moving forward with, that we feel serves the community well and represents the consensus of our community. And as such, our immediate next step in presenting this to the Board of Education is to ask for either the Board of Education's approval, which would be a formal adoption of this document, or to return it to us with a specific request or requests for further revision. And we'll kind of hold the line there. But we're already planning for life after this document in whatever approved version it is, what those next steps will entail. So once the document is approved, be that perhaps tonight, perhaps at the next Board of Education meeting or at a meeting further down the road, depending if there's additional revisions to be undertaken. Would be next to plan for community rollout and how we're going to share this document with Portland. More than words on a page. We want this document to live. We want this document to be of impact and immediate effect, and that's really dependent on how we roll this out, and we want to do that strategically. And we're open to suggestions from the Board of Education and community members on how we might do that to the best of our ability. We want to begin to use this equity statement to work with schools and our school-based equity leadership teams to begin the work of performing equity audits within our buildings. What does equity currently look like within our physical spaces, within our classrooms, within our hallways, within our cafeterias, within our curriculum documents, within our libraries and on our library shelves, and relative to our achievement and success data. And there are a number of research-vetted equity measures, equity audit measures and tools that we can draw upon to begin to perform this important work. And we also want to work with the Board of Education and district leadership using this equity statement to undertake the next level of what we call developing and actualizing an equity lens. So an equity lens really is a set of questions or considerations that we ask when making decisions and when reviewing or revising policy and data to ensure that we are advancing equity across PPS at all times strategically and consistently. So we want to develop that equity lens protocol in concert with the Board of Education, our district leadership team, such that we can answer the call that this statement charges us with. We can move on to the next slide.
So, some final thought and building on that or you can click on the first image. A couple final thoughts before we take questions. Dylan, the next. So this is an image that I've seen since I started in education, quality versus equity and that difference in what they are. And we want to be able as a committee to expand that. We know that you as a board have long thought about the difference between giving all students the same thing versus giving all students what they need. You're the board who launched us into this coalition of advancing equity in Portland Public Schools. We want to make sure that we are not only helping to support students, but we're going beyond that. We're really looking at all aspects of our structure. We want to be able to take our framework from looking at this, of looking at just the resources we give, to a bit more of a complex analogy. So click next. And then one more time. The idea for us is equity is not a game. We're not looking on a baseball field. Education, as we all see here, is one of the essential elements that we need to advance in society. You know, so we look at it like the apple. The first image is of a tree with inequality, unequal access to opportunities. And you give everyone the same size ladders. Some kids can reach the tree and some can't. And with equity, we look to give students different resources. But beyond that, it's not just giving students resources. It's taking deep reflections with our own internal structures to understand that we ourselves are not perfect and need to make improvements along the way. So that inequality that existed from the beginning is removed over time. And we move from equity to justice. So that we have not only given every child in our district the resources that they need, but we help fix the structure overall for future students that will come through. Make sure that all students will have equal access to both their tools and opportunities moving forward. Next image. The final quote I want to leave you with is this: equity can never become a reality in education if it's viewed as charity instead of a professional obligation. This is not an initiative. This is not something we do out of empathy. This is something that we are mandated and required to do to ensure that all students receive a high-quality education here at Portland Public Schools. And this statement sets that forth as an important thing that we will work over our coming years to build ourselves to meet that vision.
We can head on to the final slide, Dylan. And this is just an opportunity at this time for any members of the Board of Education to ask any questions or make any comments you might have. Important to note that on the board are two members of our coalition, Lauren Christensen and Tim Lavoy. And any of us are happy to field any questions you may have.
I don't have a question. I like what I see. I think that the commitments could be reworded. Number 2 and number 3 could be a little stronger. Preserving and strengthening our schools where diversity is protected and celebrated, and our classrooms and programs as safe and shared community spaces. I think I'd like that to be a little bit stronger, and I think empowering members of our school community might be a little bit stronger as well, and that we're providing professional development. I'm not sure what empower means particularly, and I think the third one could include something a little bit meatier than just empowering. So those are the 2 recommendations that I would make. It's very good, and thank you for the hard work. I know this is not an easy task, especially with 25 people and different ideas.
Thank you, Meg. Not to counter those questions, I'm only responding to let you know the coalition really wrestled in those, wording those commitments as to how specific to be. We want this to be a living document, and as we advance the work of equity, our knowledge and our practices evolve. So we didn't want to place limitations around how we would empower, knowing that our own abilities and knowledge of how we may empower others will evolve over time as our knowledge and commitments to equity advance over time. And so that was our intent in keeping those commitments sufficiently broad without being too watered down. The coalition felt that they didn't mean anything.
Or developing professional leaders. We didn't want to get that specific at this time. We really wanted to lay that vision down that many different roads we will take to help meet it over the coming years.
Understood. Okay. So empowered is the word you want to use. That's fine.
Did you have any questions, Laurel?
I don't have any questions. No, I'm really grateful for the time and effort that you all have put into this document. I think that it accomplishes what we were hoping to accomplish, and as I've been reading this over the last couple of days and thinking on it, there were things from the first draft that I was initially kind of missing, things that felt stronger or had a little more punch. But as I sat with it and I hear your comments about wanting this document to be really accessible for our community, for our student body, I think it does those things. And I think what I arrived at personally is that we need this, but also the real power of this document is comes from the administrative team that's implementing it in our district. And we have an administrative team that is so clearly committed to this work, personally and professionally. And so I feel really confident that this document will do what it needs to do to kind of guide our work as a district moving forward. So I feel really good about this document. I would be ready to support it tonight. And thank you to the committee for all of your time and effort in making this happen.
Tim, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just add, we spent a lot of hours in our little breakout groups working on all this stuff, and it was good. It was a really good exercise, and I think, looking at the result here, it kind of rolls over you all that time and all those conversations. When we got back from I guess we saw this first after the holiday break, and I was very happy with the changes that have been made after the road testing, and I do think it is reflective of a real effort to reach a consensus and come up with something that is it does represent a good vision for where we need to go, and I think we did a good job, and thank you guys for all your work on it.
Thank you, as a coalition member.
I appreciate the commitment to the questions moving forward as you look at strategy and look at decisions that are being made, that you always have those foundational questions to come back to. So it's this charter, if you will. It's this guiding foundational document that it's kind of like true north. It brings you back to a common place before you go off into many different directions. So I appreciate all the work that has gone into this. It's my first viewing of the document as I reflected on that as a new member of the Board of Ed. So I appreciate all of the work, and I would be very ready to support this document tonight as well.
Dave, any comments?
Thank you so much, and especially hearing from someone who hasn't seen this before. I really appreciate that. That is our intention for what we want this to be, a guiding thing for the actions that we will take as a district moving forward. This becomes a source that we can come back to the framework to stay within.
Dave, anything to add?
No, just it's very well laid out, and it particularly says exactly what we would hope for, and I would support it as well.
Lauren?
As being a member of the coalition, this has been months of hard work, and I just want to reiterate that I'm proud of everybody, especially our students. Having input, especially from the student body, was a really wonderful experience. I loved working with them, and I have to say to you folks that you did a wonderful job presenting tonight. I absolutely am ready to support the document tonight, so thank you.
I would just add that seeing where it is today from where it was over the summer when we looked at the initial draft, I like that it's much more forward-looking about the intentions that we have moving forward. I agree and acknowledge it's important to look at where we were, but this is a much more, I think, accessible statement for the entire community, and again, talks more about where we go from where we are, not necessarily being accusatory or saying, you know, we're not in a good place. It's just saying, these are our aspirations, this is what we're gonna work towards, and I think it's really a great statement, and I'm happy to support it as well.
Thank you, and you know, if I could, not that I need to have the final word, but just to reiterate thanks to the Board of Education for charging us with this work. You know, it's critically important, and you know, to have you know, that positive pressure from the board, to have the belief and to have, you know, that spirit of commitment from the very top of our district gives inertia, you know, to everything that we do, and gives great coherence to the work. So we really appreciate your support. We appreciate the positive pressure, and you know, we thank you for your comments, and I think we're excited to know that we've got something that can move the district forward, and also that meets the satisfaction of the board, as it seems, and to know that we've answered the call. So thank you very much.
The only other comment I wanted to make was in the presentation, the second student that spoke, I'm sorry, I don't.
Dorothy Riley.
Dorothy?
Yeah.
I thought it was great to hear her say, you know, once this is approved and everybody in school sees it, they're gonna know what we've been working on, and she feels very confident that there'll be a lot more buy-in to the whole concept of equity and inclusion, which to many kids may seem like, you know, a little bit of a foreign concept. So that, I think, is very good to hear too, and hopeful. So that was great to hear. Okay.
I see a lot of heads nodding
Yeah.
from coalition members, and I think that's part of the excitement of this moment, is knowing that we've established a new call to accountability for ourselves in the next step of moving the district forward.
Do we need a motion for this to approve it? I would like to make a motion to the full board that we accept or approve the equity statement as written, as presented tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have second and a second.
You can have it, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you again for your hard work.
Who did you give the second to, Stacy?
Sure.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next. New business. First item is the Portland Youth Services Advisory Board Liaison position. And I think we do have someone prepared to,
Is
speak
Jesse
with us?
on? We have
Yes.
some-
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here. That's a lot to follow. I think that's it's great work that you guys have been doing, and I hope that us at Youth and Family Services can continue that work and work with you to continue your mission. My name is Jesse Ravicki. I started here at Youth and Family Services in September, taking over from Meg Scotta, who was the interim director, and Mary Pont before her. Something that I've been doing here in the past few months is trying to build a collaboration and build a relationship with the school. And it's something that I think is quite important and can be a really good place for Youth and Family Services to support the work that the school is already doing, and to provide additional assistance where they may need it. Whether that be during school or more likely after school, where they're, you know, we're left to the town, we're left to the parents, we're left to everybody. Some of the things that we are doing here at Youth and Family Services, and that are related to the school and some of the work that we will be doing. I've talked with Kate Bohannon and a few other people about the school-based diversion initiative. Youth Services supports that, and we will support it in any way that we can. I was speaking with Wesleyan and with Kate and Chuck this morning about potentially setting up some one-on-one tutoring for some middle school and high school students. I've heard that that was a need. And in the future, potentially some different types of after-school programming, things that you know, our youth can do after school, you know, that can supplement what's already being done through the YMCA, through Parks and Recreation, through the library, and through the school itself. And then a couple things that we're going to be doing in the next few months is some prevention work. The local prevention council is something that we are re-implementing and setting back up and filling up with people again. And the two things that we'll be doing is setting up a survey of risk behaviors and potentially social emotional learning capabilities of the students, most likely middle and high school age, which will give us an idea of what the needs are of the community. Because if we can put on the best program, the best events, but if nobody wants it, then it wasn't worth it. So figuring out what we need to do is first, and second, as part of that same local prevention council, we'll be putting on some presentations, specifically restorative justice, which I know the school system is actively using or at least restorative practices in different ways, vaping and marijuana use. Those will all be evening presentations for the town, the community, for students. But we'll also be doing some in-school presentations, assemblies, coming to health classes. We're going to be working with the schools to figure out what the best way to do that is. So we're going to have, you know, work with the schools. I think we can have a really good relationship. And so one of the things that I think could help that is a Board of Education liaison. The Youth Services Advisory Board meets every other month at this point. We are generally a sounding board and input from the community, from our members. And it would be helpful, I think, to have somebody from the Board of Education who can go to bat for us and with us in things that are related to the school, and for somebody from the Board of Education to come and talk to us and tell us what you need and how we can help as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know I have information that there's at least one board member interested in serving as our liaison, and as such, I would move to nominate or name Stacy Benham as our liaison to the Portland Youth Services
I'd second that.
Advisory Board.
I'd second that.
In seconds. Any other discussion?
No, great.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. Awesome.
Great, thank you
Thanks,
for
Stephanie.
volunteering to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, next is the Conservation and Renewable Task Force discussion.
I can help frame that if you'd like. So
Sure.
The policy committee met recently, and we took a look at our bylaws surrounding both the formation of committees and ad hoc committees. And the discussion came up as we were reviewing the ad hoc committees. Sometimes we form these committees and there isn't always a clear understanding of when it's time to disband the committees. But so the policy committee, we had a discussion about the committees that have shown up on our agenda for a while now and may have reached a time where it's time to consider ending those committees and reassigning the work of those committees to other standing subcommittees. So the one that came up in our policy committee discussion is the Conservation and Renewable Task Force Ad Hoc Committee. I don't know when that was formed. I didn't go back and look. I think it's been around for probably 4 or 5 years now.
No.
2 or 3.
No, it's about three, yeah, 2.5, 3 years ago. But we haven't met since before COVID, and the role of that committee has wound down.
Right, it's wound up.
Yeah.
So, one of the recommendations from the policy committee was to bring a recommendation forward to kind of wrap up the work of that committee and take any things that committee covers and recommend moving that over to the Buildings and Grounds Committee as an agenda item for those meetings.
So I would make a motion to the board that the Conservation and Renewable Task Force Ad Hoc Committee be disbanded and that any issues addressed by the Conservation and Renewable Task Force be considered by the Board of Education, Building and Grounds Subcommittee.
I'll second that.
Okay, Meg seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Item C is a leave of absence request.
So Jamie DeRose is having her first child. I saw her today. She looks great and is very happy and being very careful about COVID. Certainly support her taking the time she needs with her new child and wish her the best of luck. We've all been there. She's in for quite a ride.
Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to the board that we approve maternity leave for the rest of the 2021-2022 school year for Jamie DeRose.
Are there
I'll
specific,
second that.
on the amendment, are there specific dates?
Well, it says March.
Yeah, she
March
said she's
17th.
going to start March 17th and from then on till the end of the year.
To the end of the year.
Yeah.
I accept that amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second, I guess, to the amended
I'll second.
motion?
Yeah, I'll second the amended
Second,
motion.
Stacy seconded it.
The amended motion? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Best of luck. Next is a recommendation to hire architectural firm to investigate capital improvement and space needs for the schools.
All right, can I take a crack at that one?
Sure.
So this is an exciting moment. So as you know, one of our goals this year was to embark with our facilities committee on a process of designing a 5 to 10 year modernization plan essentially for the facilities. That committee has been hard at work. We published a request for qualifications to identify an architecture firm. Remember, we had originally thought maybe an OPM, but then decided that an architecture firm would be better suited. We published the request for qualifications, and we had 6 architecture firms respond with their qualifications. A subcommittee of the facilities committee met, reviewed those qualifications. From those firms, selected 4 firms to come and present to the facilities committee. So 4 architecture firms came forward, about a half hour each presented to our facilities committee. All 4 were outstanding presentations, but in the end there can be only one, right? So we winnowed it down to 2 of the firms, and we sent out a request for proposal. Right? So I did include in your packet tonight the RFP, request for proposal. This is where we see how much the firms would charge to the 2 firms, and we received the sealed bids and opened them. And at that point, Capital Society tells us we select the low bidder as long as they are sufficiently qualified and meet the specifications in the RFP. And at this point, we have a reasonable bid from a firm called Fryer Architecture. So I have checked references with 3 districts that Fryer worked for. All 3 of them gave the firm glowing reviews. So at this point, per the resolution from the Town Board of Selectmen, it is for us to ask the Board of Education for permission to engage Fryer in some additional discussions that would eventually lead to a contract that would retain their services, help us continue to design this 5 to 10 year modernization plan. Tomorrow night, it is on the Board of Selectmen agenda. I'm planning to attend the Board of Selectmen meeting and answer questions. Hopefully they too will give us their blessing. And should I enjoy the support of the board and the Board of Selectmen, I would meet with Fryer Architecture and hopefully be able to bring them to our next facility study committee and engage in the important work of designing a vision for our schools. And Dave and Meg, I know you guys are both right there involved in
Yeah,
this. So
those
if
are
you want to add anything you want to add.
No, this is a great firm and comes with great references. They've done a lot of work for CREC, and some of the magnet schools really quite beautiful. And they come with a good reputation, so we were very pleased. Quite pleased to see that they got the contract.
I'll agree with that statement. We interviewed all of them, and they all had great qualifications. This one, to me, stood out as one of the top ones. So I'm glad we ended up going with this one.
Agreed.
So, I just have a couple of questions. In terms of the documentation that was provided, we have a copy of the RFP, but not the proposal itself.
Oh,
The
you mean the
successful-
response from Fryer?
Right.
Yeah, okay, why don't I put that in my Friday email to you? You can see what the number of hours and things their response to it, sure, yes. I can tell you that their response addressed all of the things we asked for.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll be happy to make the motion to recommend to the Board of Education that the Superintendent of Schools be authorized to enter into a contract with Fryer Architecture for the purpose of designing a Portland Public Schools modernization master plan.
I'll second that.
Tim? Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you, very exciting.
Okay, we have nothing under old business. Committee reports?
For curriculum, we have not met yet since the last meeting, but we are investigating, or Eric Martin is investigating, how other districts use their curriculum committee and how that relationship works between the schools and the Board of Education. So we are going to be meeting and discussing a little bit of, there could be some changes to how the curriculum committee is going to be working moving forward, which I think is really great. So.
Okay. Policy?
No meeting planned.
We do have one planned next week.
Yeah, we do, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get an invitation. I
No,
haven't seen
we said it during our last meeting a few weeks ago,
Oh,
It's,
did I?
when we discussed our committees and we discussed.
All right, thank you.
we have
I
it
missed
12
it.
at 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Do you want to just briefly report out on the last committee, the discussion about the bylaws and the general consensus that the subcommittees are pretty good shape, but the one recommendation was that the curriculum committee convene and
figure
Take a
out.
look.
Figure out what it should look like.
Well, it was a long,
Go
it was
on.
a long
pre-holidays,
hiatus, it
Meg,
was
I'm
too
sorry.
long.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you just summarized it
Yeah.
nicely,
Thank you.
Charles.
Yeah.
We looked at our subcommittees and
Yeah.
we looked at our bylaws and
Right.
we talked specifically about the need to look at curriculum
Yeah.
and that we could
Great.
let go of the renewable
Right.
conservation and renewable task force.
Right.
Great. Okay, well,
Okay.
well done, thank you. Thank you, team.
Personnel, we continue to work on our contract negotiations. They are moving, and hopefully we'll have some proposals to get to the full board in the near future. Building and grounds,
Can I just add one quick thing about the Personnel Committee? So the items that the Personnel Committee discussed at the last meeting, we're going to cover during the executive session.
Yes.
building and grounds,
There's nothing scheduled, at this time.
conservation and renewable task force no longer exists.
Cross
Rec liaison,
Correct, I was meeting on the 17th, I believe, 2 weeks from now,
board of selectmen,
on the 19th.
Two things, they gave me a certificate of congratulations to the Panthers football team, which I thought was a nice gesture. And they also, most of the meeting was focused on appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions. That was two big notable things.
committee on solidarity,
It looks like their next meeting is January 11th, Tuesday, January 11th, which conflicts with our BOE budget meeting for that same time, but did you go to the last meeting, Laurel? I missed the last one.
We were in contract negotiations
Oh, that's-
with the
I knew there was a
custodians
reason. I
during their
missed
last
it.
meeting,
Yeah.
so neither of us were able to attend.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
So many nights in a week, huh?
Yep.
I know, right?
For sure.
equity and inclusion coalition, we had a presentation earlier, is there anything in addition to that
I think that's it.
you think to report?
think that-
Okay. Yeah, you were busy.
Covered it, yeah.
Okay. School facilities study committee,
The next planned meeting is January the 10th.
okay. Audience of citizens? No, okay. Any Board of Ed member comments? Tim?
No, I don't believe so.
Laurel?
Yeah, quickly, I was able to attend the National Honor Society induction on December 9th, which a few folks spoke about earlier, and I just wanted to share with you all, like, it was the most beautiful event. It was organized by 13 current members, students who are current members, in order to induct these 28 new members, and I have never attended a high school event quite like this. Each of the 13 students took time to personally introduce and sing the praises of these 28 new members as they were being inducted, and it was so lovely. They just did such a beautiful job, and so I wanted to mention that. I was very pleased to attend, and congratulations to all of the new inductees. And I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to our two social media coordinators. I hope everybody has been following along the two Portland Public School Facebook pages, and they're doing such a wonderful job. It's engaging
They really are.
content. It's constant. I mean, they're posting constantly.
Yeah.
They're featuring our students in such a nice way. And I've so enjoyed being able to follow along that way, and I've heard nothing but positive feedback from the community as well. So thank you to the two of them.
Great. Meg?
Nothing. Happy New Year and the end of COVID maybe by March.
Lauren?
Yeah, just I would like to congratulate again the football team. What you guys did this year was really spectacular. And also to give another thank you to our school nurses and our admins for all their hard work with contact tracing over the last 2 years. I'm sure that this has been extremely hard for you, and even the idea of removal of contact tracing is probably extremely stressful, but hopefully you find a little relief in your in your workload in that capacity. I know you've worked so hard for us. And also thank you to Charles for the same reason, and Russ over at the Chatham Health District.
Stacy?
Just thank you again for the great school spotlight on the football team. I thought that was a great presentation. I think the equity statement was a great presentation as well. And I can second, I didn't see the National Honor Society this year, but it is a beautiful service. It's a wonderful, I was just so pleased to hear the number of students. You know, it's funny, Facebook brings back memories, and so, you know, it just brings back picture memories from the National Honor Society for my kids. So I just second what Laurel said. It's a great ceremony.
Dave?
I meant to mention this in my Board of Selectmen, that tomorrow night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, the appointment of the architectural firm is on the agenda. So if you can attend, it would be great to show support. I'm planning to be there, obviously, but I'm sure, you know, Charles is as well. But
Okay, I think we did get a copy of the agenda in our packet, so that's a good reminder. Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session for purposes of collective bargaining agreements and to invite Dr. Britton to join us?
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Okay, Tim, motion?
Okay.
Meg, second?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, okay.
I need to start eating dinner before
I know.
meetings.
I go home and have nachos and
So
some
hungry.
awful cheese whiz. It was just crazy.
Oh, that's funny.
Does anybody feel like they need a kick? I'm happy to hand this over.
I spent $1 million in
Keegan,
Dr.
what?
Lee.
I mean, I am, but it's because of my booster. I don't need it.
I have a little bit of a stockpile at home. I'm okay.
Okay.
My younger son was inducted into the National
Yeah.
Honor Society his senior year, and you're right. It was the most wonderful ceremony.
I had
It was so
calcific
special.
Yeah, it was
tendinitis
just like, 'cause
in
he'd
one of
get
the
up and
tendons,
speak
and
heartfully
when he
about
got in
My
there,
high
it turned
school
out it was completely
my high
torn.
school was 12
Yeah, and so
students
they don't know,
is
did
it
I
a
tear it and that's
get
what caused the
inducted into National
calcification,
Honor
or did the
Society, and it's
calcification,
like, well,
we don't know.
congratulations, okay,
And
there
so
it
I'm
is.
gonna
Yeah,
go forward
yeah.
with hair, which is kind of a drag.
This is
It's gonna be a long
so
recovery.
intimate
Yeah,
and
on your
personal.
shoulder.
Yeah.
I did
This-
that.
it couldn't
Yeah,
have been
was yours
sweeter.
similar?
I would've gone and had that for COVID. I just decided I wouldn't.
And did you fall on it?
Yeah, and actually, it wasn't nearly
Oh,
as
did you do it in the
bad.
library?
They did it in the,
That and a broken arm.
Time to come out of executive session.
9:20.
I have 9:21, but that's all right. You're the secretary.
Okay. All right, I think there are a few items that we will be taking action on from the executive session. Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll start. I'll make a motion to accept the memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the Portland Association of School Administrators for the purpose of reinstating the vision care.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Tim, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right,
Are you doing that one? I'll make a motion to the full board to accept the memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the collective bargaining unit agreement with the administrators to reinstate the retirement benefits for
Looks like
the employees.
2022 to 2025.
Right, through 2025, June 30th, 2025.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That one's unanimous also.
Is that it?
And
Oh, no, one more.
I'm on a roll here.
Get it,
Memorandum
girl.
to the full board, a memorandum of agreement between the Portland Board of Education and the CEA Portland regarding payments for the Portland teachers missing prep periods to cover classes. And that would be extending it through the end of their contract, which is June 30th, 2025.
is there a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And the last thing that we looked at was
That was it.
The job description.
Oh, we have to
You wanna
approve
do
that?
the job
I thought we
description?
don't approve that.
No, we are.
Oh.
Let's see, I'll make a recommendation to the full board to accept the Assistant Principal Portland Secondary School job description as presented tonight.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
There we are.
Okay. Everybody seconded it? All in favor?
We're all out.
Aye. I'll give it to you, Tim.
Okay.
All right. Good job,
Thank you
team.
all.
Hey, seriously, last chance, anybody want to over the festival?